Today's topic is ascent of sap. So we are going to study the definition, path, and vital theories involved in the ascent of sap. So let us introduce what is ascent of sap. So the water is absorbed mainly by roots of the plant, and from there it reaches xylem through the cortical cells and passage cells. The water in the xylem reaches top of the plant where it is transpired by leaves, and little water is used for metabolic activities. Thus, the upward movement of the water from the root through the stem is called ascent of sap. So, coming to the definition of ascent of sap, the upward movement of the water with dissolved minerals from the roots to the aerial parts of the plant through the stem is called ascent of sap. So, plants absorb water through the roots and transpire through the leaves. The water moves from the root to the tip portion of the plant against the force of gravity. The mechanisms involved in the transport of water from the roots to the leaves of the plant, some of them being then 200 meters tall. So, example, Sequoia gigantea eucalyptus is still unresolved. So we are, however, certain about the pathway of the water current, which is through the lumen of the xylem. So, what is the path of the ascent of sap? So, it is well established that the ascent of sap takes place through the xylem. So, to show the path of ascent of sap, we have two experiments. So, first one is a leafy twig of balsam plant. So, it has a semi-transparent stem is cut under water to avoid entry of air bubbles through the cut end and placed in a beaker containing water with the same eosin, a dye dissolved in it. After some time, a colored line will be seen moving upward in the stem. So, if sections of stem are taken, so you can see the xylem elements which will appear to be filled with colored water. And the second experiment to show the path of ascent of sap is the ringing experiment. So it is a leafy twig from a tree is cut under water and placed in a beaker filled with water. A ring of bark of all the tissues outer to the vascular cambium is removed from the stem. After some time, it is observed that leaves above the ringed part of the stem remain fresh and green. So, it is because water is being continuously supplied to the upper part of the twig through the xylem. So, we have vital theories to prove the ascent of sap. So first one is by Westermeyer. So he in 1883 to 84 suggested that tracheary elements hold water by capillarity and as a reservoir. And the second theory is Godlewski's theory. So Godlewski put forward his relay pump theory to explain the ascent of sap. He thought that the upward movement of water was due to the pumping cavity of the cells of the wood parenchyma and medullary rays brought about by the periodic changes in their osmotic pressure. So, with an increase in the osmotic potential of these cells, water is withdrawn from the tracheids. So, this is followed by decrease in osmotic potential and water is pumped into tracheids above. In this way, a sort of staircase movement of water takes place in the xylem. However, the structure of wood does not supply this view. If xylem parenchyma did perform some kind of pumping action, the cells should be arranged between the two xylem elements and not or at the side of the vessels as they actually do. And the third theory was given by Strasburger. So in 1839, He showed that water continued to rise in plants even after their living cells were killed by exposure of high temperatures or by their immersion in solution of poisonous substances such as picric acid. So, in one experiment, he cut off the old oak tree nearly 22 meters tall, and the cut end of the trunk was immersed in the solution of picric acid. The picric acid solution moved up the stem. So he added a liquid 3 days after picric acid, and it also ascended to the top of the tree through the tissues in which living cells had been killed by the picric acid. So the fourth theory was given by Bose, pulsation theory. So Sir J.C. Bose in 1927 experimented to show that water continued to rise in the absence of root pressure and transpiration. According to him, the ascent of sap is due to the pulsatory activities of the innermost layer of the cortex just outside the endodermis. Bose attached the one terminal of a galvanometer to some point on the potted plant and other to probe an electrical cell. A thin copper wire was used to make connection. As he inserted fine needle of electric probe into the stem, the needle galvanometer showed some momentary oscillations, but the needle tip reached the innermost layer of the cortex. Oscillations become fast and sustained. This led Bose to believe that the cells of this layer were pulsating, that is, expanding and contracting alternatively. When the cells expand, they absorb water from the lower cells, and when they contract, water is pumped into the next higher cells. Molish repeated some some of the experiments of Bose and supported his theory. And the last theory to show the ascent of sap is the root pressure theory. So under certain condition, plant exhibit exudation of xylem sap from the stump of the fleshy cut stem. Most of such exudations result from the development of pressure in the dilute sap of the xylem ducts resulting from the operation of the mechanisms in the roots. Termed the root pressure, it can also be shown experimentally that water is forced up the stem by root pressure. This led the view that root pressure in the mean by which water is raised in tall trees. The maximum of observed root pressure is 5 to 6 bars. However, many trees have height much in excess of 10 meter. Further, many tall trees, example conifers, have no demonstrable root pressure, neither in the rate of flow adequate to compensate for the known rate of transpiration. So, in addition to these objections, there is another difficulty that at the times of rapid transpiration, plants actually show negative root pressure. The cut ends of stem, instead of exuding sap, actually absorb water if it is supplied at the cut surface. All these objections support the argument that root pressure is not an important factor in the translocation. So, thank you.